Hello and welcome to another episode of Atomic Vinyl Reviews. My name is Jacob, and today we're taking a look at a very special and very unique Godzilla figure. This is a replica of an actual statue that they made when in the making of the original Godzilla 54 movie. Now, the reason that I say this is a really special figure review is because in the many years that I have been a Godzilla fan and collector, I have not, for the life of me, been able to find another copy of this figure listed anywhere online. No information about it, nothing like that. I have seen on occasion a couple of very similar figures produced by the same brand in the same sort of box of some slightly different Godzilla designs. I think there's a 2002 or 2003 Godzilla that they did release in this sort of statue form. So this is a resin statue made by a brand called Unifive, I think in association with Banpresto. And this is a figure that I got many years ago in a record store, you know, where they sell music and the big vinyl discs that play music and all that good stuff. Back in the day, I got it back when I was in high school. I was pretty young also back then, early high school. And I've had it for years and years and years. And yeah, like I said, no information about it. It's really kind of this obscure figure. Now, of course, these statues that this is based on are fairly well known. You can find photos of them and a little bit of info on those. But this particular, figure and version of them is just like, I don't know, nothing really about it online, no real info. So that's why I'm making this video, 'cause I figured maybe somebody else has one of these out there and is just curious to see that there's another one in existence. So just taking a good look at this figure. He is heavy, by the way. This guy's a big boy. Whoops. He's big, heavy, made of solid resin, and just in general a pretty awesome figure. The original statues, I don't think they were painted, but this guy is painted. He's painted in so like this gray, almost has like a greeny brown tinge to him, but pretty much like a solid charcoal gray. He has whited out eyes in this sort of bone white color, same with his teeth and claws, and some silver dry brushing across his spines, some yellowy green tinges there as well. I really like the color and look of this guy. He actually looks a bit like Shin Godzilla or the GMK Godzilla. It's funny because like Shin Godzilla in particular, he does remind me a lot, his design, of some of the concept art for the original Godzilla and some of the weirdest scenes that we see that one in. So it's kind of appropriate that this guy is very reminiscent of that. First thing that you can really tell about this design that's different from the Godzillas we actually saw in the films, because this isn't based off the one that we saw in the film, like I said. This is a concept art statue that they then based all the future Godzillas off of, basically. But the first thing we notice, he has very short stubby legs, a very broad shape, and a very large round head. But already we can see he's got that classic Godzilla keloid scar scaling, or that like tree bark scaling. They actually made a number of these statues, I think 2 or 3, each with different scaling and some different, slightly different characteristics. One had like round bumps, and other had like, traditional sort of lizard-like scaling, or like dragon scales, the kind of thing you saw in King Ghidorah, but a bit more bigger. But they opted for this scaling to kind of represent him as like a burn victim of radiation, basically, which I really love. So this is that final design. We can already see his spines are in that classic sort of 54, really jagged shape. They're a little bit different to the exact 54 spines, but they are definitely in that same style, and they came out really beautifully. I love how chunky these are. He's also got that sort of very rounded belly and that leaning forward pose that's really reminiscent of the GMK 2001 design as well. And he's got this little fairly short stubby tail compared to some of the later Godzillas, and a lot smaller arms, I think, a lot sort of skinnier, at least around the hands, compared to what we saw in the film. And a very sort of more rounded, flatter face than we saw the Godzilla in the film as well. But yeah, I really like this design. It's very sort of stylized and cartoonish in a way, but it definitely is very reminiscent of the Godzilla that we saw in the 54 film. And just to give you guys a brief look underneath him, he does have some copyright details under here. I'll just read it out to you. It says TM and Co. 1954 to 2004, Toho Co. Ltd, BP U China. I think the BP and then the U and then the China. That stands for Banpresto and Unifive China. And I believe this figure was made in 2004 by the looks of it. So, yeah, very cool. From what I heard, the dude at the store bought this thing in Japan and actually brought it over to Australia. That's how he had it in his store. I got it for about 200 Australian dollars at the time. I'm not sure if like the exchange rate and whatnot has changed quite a lot then, if it what it would be worth now or anything like that. But I think that was an absolute steal for this thing because again, this figure is rare. Like I've looked and there's nothing like this, and this is solid resin. It's as big as like a big X Plus 30 centimeter figure, and it is just a really great piece of Godzilla history. So this is probably like the figure in my collection that I'm like most proud of. It's my most unique piece in my collection aside from things that I've literally sculpted myself. So yeah, really loving this thing. I'm going to show you some close-up details of this in a sec and then do a size comparison and all that good stuff that I always do. But first I'll bring in the box and just give you guys a good look at that. So we'll take this guy away for now. So here's the box that he came in. It is a huge box, by the way. The other figures that I've seen in this same style that occasionally pop up on eBay, and they're always really expensive as well, also come in very similar boxes to this. These boxes done, you know, black and white. Also have like a very black and white cool image of the figure on the box, looking really menacing. I love that little grin he has and he's like really creepy face of this guy. Here you can actually see the original price tag, $225, and that's a little egg-shaped logo because it was Egg Records, which is now a store that's gone. It used to be right in the heart of Brisbane City in Queen Street Mall. That store is now gone. It's such a shame. They moved it to West End, but then it's just gone for good now. I don't know what happened to it, but that's the store I got this from a while ago. Here we have more of that same legal stuff we found under the figure, written in English here. Most of the other stuff on this box is in Japanese. This whole part written in Japanese, I have actually translated it. I'll talk about that in a second, but before that I'll just keep showing you more of the box. Same thing up the top of the box. You can see if we open up the box, big styrofoam slabs, and inside these slabs was like a hollow that the figure fit in on an angle, and there was also like a bit of crate paper or something just holding him in there. So that's how he was in his box. Here we got the Unifive logo, and back here is where we get a lot more legal information and all that stuff. I can't read like all of it, apart from a few key little things which are written down here. So there we go. Banpresto U5 or Unifive 2004, made in China, for sale only in Japan, and that all checks out. So yeah, really interesting figure, really big box, really unique stuff here, guys. So yeah, if you guys know anything about this or you have a similar figure in your collection, hit me up. I want to know about it. I want to, you know, learn more about this figure. It's actually one of the... When I first got online and started talking to people on Facebook groups about Godzilla and stuff, this figure was the first thing I asked about. I've sent photos around and asked people, you know, do you know anything about this figure, how much it's worth, just general info about it, and really nobody really knew. Nobody really knew, so that was pretty interesting. And like I said, to this day, can't find a single other one listed anywhere. Like usually for the most part, even the most rare figures, you can typically, like, they show up every once in a while and like people talk about them and they have photos of them and stuff like that, and you know, they're really expensive, but they are existing. But this guy, not so much. So yeah, let's take a nice close look at this guy and really get a good look at these details. There we go. You can already see some of that scaling looking really cool there. And now, this guy's pretty big, so what I'm going to do, and this might off-put a few of you, but I'm going to do some handheld camera, because We're gonna do this like the Cloverfield movie. So here we go. We got a beautiful look at his little cute face and his little snout and his nose. You can see his eyes and the way they're painted in. There's quite like a dark brownish sort of shade coming down from the top of them. Really interesting that they chose to leave out his pupils as well. Now, let's have a look at his teeth here. Nice, really sharp sculpt done on these teeth. They really came out nice here. And I think all of this, he doesn't really have any noticeable like seam lines, so I don't know how they like actually like did the mouth when they actually made the resin. I don't see any like visible seam lines, or maybe oh no, maybe this is like one and then they like sealed it off pretty well, so they looks like they probably did the jaw in a separate piece. But for the most part, this guy looks like he was made in a solid piece of resin, which is really impressive. So if we look down his tail, his spine's looking really cool. Love this chunky, really aggressive scaling that he's got going on here. Looks really awesome. Really sort of very powerful looking legs, even though they're kind of stumpy. You can just tell they were designed to look like they're bearing a lot of weight, which is really cool. There you can see all the details there. It really looks like it was, you know, sculpted out of a chunk of clay. Now, the interesting thing is, I'm not sure if this guy is actually like a remolded version of the original concept art statue, because I don't think that one exists anymore, if I'm going to be entirely honest. I think this is just a resculpted copy that somebody did, and then they you know, made the figure out of that. I could be wrong. Like, if that original concept art statue exists and this is actually an exact copy of that would be really cool. I doubt it though, but, you know, let me know in the comments if you guys know what happened to that original statue. There we go, just a good look at those spines. Aren't they gorgeous? Sorry, the lighting is so bright here. It's really overexposed, but my camera's really iffy, so it's not the best, but you guys get the idea. I love the sort of slightly metallic coloring they have on them. Really interesting thing, a lot of Godzilla figures kind of used a bit of silvery metallic color on his spines, like especially some of the older Bandais, even though he never really had metallic spines in the movies. He always had sort of bone-colored spines, or some of these more recent ones that just gray like the rest of them, which I think it doesn't stand out as well, but kind of an interesting color choice that they decided to copy over onto this figure. He got a good look at that beautiful face of his and that little mouth and the smile he's got going with those really, really cool, aggressive looking teeth. I love that. A nice bone coloring on them, a little bit of that flesh tone inside his mouth, whited over eyes. Really nice sort of shape around his mouth, and that really rounded over sort of shape that he has, especially on the side. His head's very round and really strange looking for a Godzilla. Definitely see the influence this had on the final 54 film. And really soon we will compare this guy to some other Godzilla figures, especially some 1954 Godzilla figures. Look at that. Around the front again. There he looks just like he does on the front of the box. So the box really is very accurate as to what you're getting on the inside. Like, when I first saw the box, you know, being a young Godzilla fanatic, I'm like, oh my god, look at this thing. Like, I didn't know it was the concept art. I had like a fair idea, but at the time I was like, this is really weird looking, but I really want it. And of course, I was really young back then, so the amount of money this thing cost was like a lot. But I'm really glad I did end up getting him. My parents were a little bit like concerned, like, geez, you're spending a lot of money on this thing. Little did they know in years to come. But yeah, look at all that scaling. Now come on, camera, get in focus. What do I pay you for? There we go, look at that. Really, sort of really rough and aggressive scaling. You can definitely tell that this was hand sculpted. It's got that really sort of slightly unfinished look, but it really just kind of gives you an idea of like what they were going for. And I really love that segmented tail. He does have this nice stumpy tail, but it's kind of cool to see sort of a shorter tail on Godzilla's, because a lot of them get a little bit crazy with the lengths of their tail. Like, I love Shin Godzilla, but man, his tail is crazy. Like, I wouldn't change him at all at this point, but like, and all the Heisei figures like you see here, they had crazy long tails, and like, you know, you don't need them. They don't need them to be crazy long. You can just have this nice tail like this one. It still looks really cool. Really interesting proportions. Let me take a look at his little hands here. These really sort of thin, smaller hands here. Very sort of aggressive looking. Really nicely done. Really cool details down the front. Again, very visceral, very simple. You can tell that was, just kind of really roughly sculpted in just to give that sort of really simple impression of what this guy would look like. Earlier on, I did bring up that I could actually that I did go and translate some of this, the wording up on the box here. And let me kind of explain that. So I got this guy when I was still in early high school. So back then I was learning Japanese as a compulsory course in high school in class. And that's where I asked my Japanese teacher if she could translate it for me. So I took a photo in to class, and after class I asked her about it. And this is the piece of paper that she gave me like next week after taking a look at it. Now she found it a little bit difficult to perfectly translate as well because it was using a slightly different Japanese script to the more simple one. Here she kind of translated it into the more simple one as well, and then into English. So I forgot the exact names of them. There's like hiragana, katakana, and kanji, and I forget which one's which because Japanese was a little while ago. I can still kind of read some of these things, like these simplified ones. I think they're katakana. I could be wrong. Because these are the more complex sort of ones that are based off the Chinese script, and these are the more sort of simplified Japanese sort of ones. But of course, the writing goes as follows. So Eastern Treasure, for those of you who are aware, that is the same in Japan as Toho. Down here, these letters actually Toho. So Toho is the Japanese film studio that owns Godzilla, makes all the movies, and owns all the rights to Godzilla. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Here we have monster. So these actually I can kind of read this. So kaiju, and then this is yo or something, or I can't read these last two exactly. Like I think that's yo. I don't know why they would be added to the end of that, but they are. So Toho monster, and maybe the yo means series because there's the word series over there. I don't know why it's way over there. And then we move down a little bit. This symbol, which is like kyo dai. Kyodai. I'm not exactly sure if I'm reading that right, but the that probably means series. So Eastern Treasure or Toho Monster Series, huge, gigantic, or enormous. So whatever this means translates to really big. Real figure. Okay, and this is where it gets a little bit weird. So we got this word. And this is like hana, I think, is what the simplified version down there says. I could be wrong again. Haven't done Japanese in a long time. It's been a while. But that means like chick, doll, or female. That's the part that's really kind of confusing because this one doesn't really make sense. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that means like figure or like doll or something closer to that, I'd assume. And then it says shape or form and Gojira, Godzilla. So I kind of translated it as to Toho Monster Series, huge real figure doll Godzilla. So that's the best I could do with the translating of what this box up here says. And since I can't really find any other examples of this, knowing this translations apart from that one, it's a little bit of a mystery. Yeah, interesting. Interesting stuff. But if, again, in the comments, let me know if you guys have any more info on this guy, because I'd be really down to know. And now let's do a little bit of a size comparison thing and compare this guy to some other figures. So here, I'm going to do like a size comparison montage, but first I just wanted to bring in our little 54 monster arts, just to kind of look at the detail work. Because you can definitely see they elongated the snout, changed the proportions to be more humanoid, changed up some of the details of the spines, but again, very similar in essence, which is really cool. So yeah, I'm going to do our size comparison montage and close off the review after that. So stay tuned. Alright guys, so thank you for watching that little size comparison there. I hope that helped give you an idea of how big and chunky this guy is. And really, he is heavy, because this thing is solid resin. Very heavy. So yeah, I could actually just bring in a ruler to kind of try and show you how tall he is. So this is a 30 centimeter ruler, as you can see there. It's pretty much spot on 30 centimeters, but again, he's leaning forward a lot. He's got very rounded features. So he seems a little bit bigger than your typical sort of 30 centimeters Monster Arts figure, and a lot heavier, a lot chunkier, because, you know, those ones are typically made of hollow vinyl. It's a very light material, very light substance, but this guy, nah. This guy's like the full 12-inch height, really quite long, very broad, very chunky, really cool figure. So yeah, if you guys know anything about this figure or anything like that, or have a similar figure, do let me know. Again, I'd be super interested, and for those of you who have never seen this figure, it's a good thing to watch out for, and just to, you know, I hope some of you found it interesting to know that this thing was out there. It's always good to learn about cool obscure figures and stuff like that. And yeah, that is it for this video, guys. I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to like and or subscribe and all that jazz. And may all your vinyl be a radiated vinyl. Over and out.